What was the real point of the Chase Fund?
In terms of sports, it has got to be the single biggest contributor to the support of sports in Jamaica. When I was chairman, it may have been in the order of 600 million Jamaican dollars.
Wow.
And now it's probably near 800 to maybe even $1 billion. Saying to Omar, my brother, that we can't continue believing that we're going to make it in international football. I wouldn't call them rejects because they're good footballers.
Right.
Jamaica has a huge problem. A lot of problems in Jamaica are huge problems. A government, especially a future government, has to sit down and how can we invest more in the facilities.
An exclusive interview with Dr. Carlton Davies. Alright, welcome everybody to our second exclusive interview with Dr. Carlton Davies. It's a real honor to be talking to somebody with such an illustrious career. You were cabinet secretary from 1993 to 2008. He was the chairman for the Chase Fund, which is culture, health, arts, sports, and education, amongst being the chairman of the Special Olympics, NHT, and being named Mr. Bauxite. So, it's a special feeling to have you here, sir. Thank you for your service to the country. And most of all, your biggest accolade might be the fact that you're an Arsenal supporter and a Jamaica, I don't know, you're Mr. Jamaica too at this point. So, welcome to the channel. Today the main focus is going to be the Chase Fund, talking about what it means, talking about the National Stadium, Sabina Park, talking about what the next government could do to ensure that we have the best sporting facilities using the money that was provided for them, talking about your book, and amongst some other things. But to get started, I just wanted to talk to you about your early years. We interviewed your brother. He spoke about the fact that he's from Clarendon, he went to Glenmuir. And just, what is your background like in sports?
Well, I've had a long history in sport. We started off watching cricket next door. In fact, the ground is still there to where all my parents lived, and we used to watch cricket, played a bit, and but we followed other sports, mainly from the newspapers. We didn't have the television on or what technology brings. So that is how I got interested in our British Premier League club, Arsenal.
Oh, okay.
I got interested through cricket, funny enough, because one of England's greatest cricketers, Dennis Compton, was also a winger for Arsenal.
Wow.
Yes. In those days, a number of cricketers used to play both football and cricket. Interestingly, more money was in cricket.
Oh, at the time.
So Dennis Compton played for Middlesex in county cricket, and England in Test cricket, and Arsenal in football. As a matter of fact, he won one or two FA Cup finals as an Arsenal player. So I like Dennis Compton as a cricketer, glamour, like the West Indians of Europe, attractive and so on. So through that's how I got to pick Arsenal as my favorite team, and I have a lot of good company. The former leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, the present leader of the Labour Party in England, of course, and Prime Minister is an Arsenal man.
Right.
The former Chancellor of the Exchequer of the UK, whom Omar knows. It's an Arsenal man. But he was on the other side. But that was something on which they collaborated. So that's how I got interested. I followed sports, tennis,
Still.
golf, all that, mainly by newspapers, reading.
Right.
Until later in life, I was able to see these things myself.
So how did that impact on you becoming, pivotal in the chase fund? Like how did that job come about?
Well, I don't know why that was a concoction between the Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Patterson, and Omar, who was Minister of Finance. I think they cooked it up that I should take on this job as chairman of the Chase Fund. They also know my interest in sport, my interest in the arts, education in general, and it is really early childhood education. That was the specific education. So I suppose that sort of interest, and plus my experience and contacts and so on, they cooked it up that I was made chairman in late 2002 when the fund was created.
So in terms of the foundation, talk to me about the different branches of it. So like how the budgeting and what was the real point of the Chase Fund?
The real point is the recognition that certain things were not being addressed in financial terms as a matter of course in the budget. And there was this opportunity through the betting and gaming that tax which government would otherwise have collected were allocated for this purpose and divided 40% to sports, 15% to arts and culture, and the 35% distributed between health and early childhood education. So that is how, and the thing was that it could make a big difference. I mean, in terms of sports, it has got to be the single biggest contributor to the support of sports in Jamaica.
Right.
The 40%. Right? When I was chairman, it may have been in the order of 600 million Jamaican dollars.
Wow.
And now it's probably nearer 800 to maybe even a billion. But it made a big difference. Support. I remember once there was a list of maybe 40 different sports that received support from the fund.
Wow. So this is like youth development, like is the aim more our top class athletes or is it more grassroots programs?
Right across the board.
Okay.
Right across the board. Because pay staff to provide certain support for infrastructure right across the board. Not a lot of money, but properly managed, it did quite a number of good things.
So when we're talking to Dr. Davies, or your brother Dr. Davies, he made mention of the fact that, so we're talking about the facilities because I had gone down to Independence Park for our press conference for the Reggae Boyz game, and I looked into the sky and to look at the lights, and they had to get one of these lighting companies for the concerts to put in just 2 rows of lights, and it was really disappointing for me to see. Also, when I went to Sabina Park, I am a cricket supporter. I used to play cricket, and when I looked at the scoreboard not working for the past how many years, I said this, the World Cup came to the Caribbean, and we haven't gotten any games. So, like what?
It is something, let me tell you, one of the problems that we're facing in the area of sport is that it takes money to compete.
Right.
Time was when you could have managed with talent, sheer talent, So you had cricketers of yore, Gary Sobers, Viv Richards, Rowan Canal, these sheer talent. Not so anymore. Guys are training fast bowlers with machines. I was reading somewhere that they wanted, they got Dennis Lilly, the great Australian fast bowler, to coach some team in India. And he asked for a number of things: a sprinting coach. He asked for a type of wicket and certain machines. All of these things take money. And I believe, frankly, that if Jamaica and the West Indies more generally are going to try to make it in sport generally, I think that we are going to have to leverage our foreign policy, like you talk to the Australians, to get support in, whether it is in terms of equipment and so on. We did it with the Indians, with the lighting for Savannah Park, because we are really the finances of Savannah Park. The George Headley stand was built by us, by government.
Okay.
The North stand was built by government for the knock down one stand that was there, and we rebuilt it for the 2007 World Cup. We are really the ones that are carrying it. But I think that we are beginning to feel the pressure of supporting all the needs and staying competitive. And we are going to have to find some more imaginative means of bringing financing, which is not borrowed money, because we are limited in that. And I believe that we should use our foreign policy. We have done it with India, but we could do more. We should do it with Australia, New Zealand, because they're interested. There are certain common things like cricket and netball. Football, of course, is a universal game, and FIFA has done some things. FIFA is more responsive than cricket in that regard. But if you're going to make it, I was saying to Omar, my brother, that we can't continue believing that we're going to make it in international football on community football. Great as Arnett and Tivoli and Harborview. A gentleman once had the idea of setting up 6 or 8 first Premier League football teams in the Caribbean, in which you would, bring footballers from wherever, Brazil, Argentina, to lift the standard. We're still building international competition depending on those whom we can pick up from UK, who can't make, let's call a spade a spade, they can't make the English or even the Scottish.
So you're getting into a very interesting issue, and I don't mean to cut you, but recently Kyle Butler's son came out talking about, he did an interview that we did a show on recently, talking about the fact that these are English rejects. So I don't know if I would call them English rejects, but what are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't call them rejects because they're good footballers.
Right.
Good footballers. After all, in 1998, we beat Japan. We lost to Croatia 3-1, and Croatia has always been a good team, and so on. I wouldn't call them rejects. But if they could have made England, they would have chosen that.
Right.
And so, but we can't build, as the generations age, they become less and less Jamaican. 50 years ago, you would find a lot of people for whom Jamaica was fresh.
Yeah.
Not anymore. And so if we want to stay into this great game, we are going to have to play it along the lines. Uruguay, I don't think, have a lot of. In fact, there was one at one stage. They had two really serious Premier League clubs, Penarol and another one. Right? Yet they have been a world class football. So my own feeling is that if we're going to build football, we're going to have to try to get a Caribbean league along the lines that this gentleman, Alvin Cornell, had proposed, in which you bring in players. They may not be top of the grade in Brazil or Argentina or England, but they will play here to lift the to lift the thing, if we're going to really make it, it still remains a community-oriented thing with a lot of talent. I mean, Skill Core was a supreme talent,
Right.
but you just can't build on one or two or three outstanding people. You have to have a much larger population of very good players.
So I think I have two follow-up questions for that. So pivoting back to the Chase Fund itself, you said that 40% of it was allocated, which is to sport.
Yeah.
My question is, should that, like, how do you prioritize each year? Like, how does for the next governments that come, right? The money is there. I don't know if they're going to try and change it based off which party goes in. But how does one allocate it so that we increase our sporting? And the second question I had is that for example, Leon Bailey came out and said that Jamaica can't do anything for him. And we've seen the likes of Usain Bolt give back to his country after being factually the best of all time in his sport.
Right.
So I am a big believer that if you do well, you should give back.
Yeah.
How do we get to a place with the Chase Fund and athletes that really make it? Like, what should the expectation be to build our footballing heritage in this scenario, but just in general?
I think that one of the things is that we have to come to the realization that sport is a very important activity to make youth useful, to make them actually, like a Usain Bolt, reach the top of the world in something. And we are going to have to find a way of putting more money in it. Mm-hmm. It just track and field. We have been able to do it because money has come into it. I mean, a Grace Kennedy 50 years ago would probably give a little touch here and there, but they are heavily involved in the champs. Mm-hmm. And we are going to have to find a way of getting more money in sport because there's just no other way. First class grounds, mm-hmm. good lighting, good facilities. People don't want to go to any place and be uncomfortable in the environment, all the equipment needed when you're developing fast bowling or batting talent in cricket, footballing skills, you're bringing excellent coaches it is so important in developing youth.
Right.
And Jamaica has a youth problem. A lot of problems in Jamaica are youth problems, whether it's crime, people just not doing anything. And sport is one way of getting them involved in something and make a good living. I think that several of our top athletes, I think they make a reasonably good living. Right. And with proper and financial advice, they will live well for the rest of their lives. Right. But we haven't. So we're going to have to find a way and a government, especially a future government, has to sit down and how can we invest more in the facilities and the other programs to make sport more successful, because you're not going to look at the Concord Cup. It's about time that we are
at the top of
in the top of the thing. You beat Dominica and you say, well, you won a match. Yes, you won a match. But you're going to have to start beating the United States and Mexico and so on.
The Panamas and the
Costa
Ricas.
Right.
You started talking about how the Chase Fund would connect to sports and providing opportunities for balancing athletes, giving back, getting their sponsors to give back. You spoke about Grace Kennedy a little bit. But Chase Fund, how the Chase Fund can be used for future governments, as well as the Sports Development Fund. That's where we were.
Yes, and I'm saying that the chase fund needs more money. I'm going to have to find, are there any means of getting more money into it? Even if it's difficult to change the ratio around, because if you try to make sport 50%, say, it means cutting early childhood education and cutting health and so on, you know. Everything is needed, is one of these things. And I think that means will have to be found how you can get more money into it so that you can support these areas, and not least of all sport, which, as I was saying earlier, is so important for youth development, not only as a socialization measure, but something in which they can master their skills and earn a good living. You know, the fellow Robnan Powell, who is the captain of the West Indies ODI and T20, was talking about the poverty they lived in Old Harbour, and how through the cricket he was able to buy his mother a nice house and so on. So that's the sort of thing. You want sport to socialize you. English used to say that it was one means of developing their administrators. That is why they placed a lot of emphasis on it in the 19th century. You know, the Battle of Waterloo was won on the playing fields of equal and sport developed. So you have that side, socializing, work as a team, fair play, that sort of thing, but at the same time, make a good living. And as in the case of Usain Bolt, give the country enormous prestige that people look up to. You're from Jamaica?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And so the means of getting more money into the fund, how? Maybe some group of people should sit down and see how this can be designed.
Okay. So in terms of Chase Fund, SDF, Sports Development Fund, the JOA, the J grades, what's the real difference between all of these four?
Well, SDF really is a funding agency to develop sport.
Yeah.
JOA, Jamaica Olympic Association, concentrates on Jamaica's participation in the Olympic Games. And the J3 is really the organization. It's the body. You may be interested to know that the gentleman who had something to do with their foundation is Norman Washington Manley.
Oh, okay.
He was president of the Jamaica Olympic Association for many years.
Really?
Yes, before Mr. Bridge succeeded him as president of the JOA, and he did a lot. Well, you know, he was a sportsman. And the National Stadium, he's the single most important person responsible for the creation of the National Stadium.
Wow.
In fact, it was on his watch. So so those institutions have specific responsibility. Sports Development Foundation is more general in providing funding support and, you know, trying to keep all the sport. And Jamaicans play a lot more sport. Long before your time, we were an outstanding table tennis country.
Right.
Maurice Foster, the cricketer and footballer, was an outstanding. In fact, he was the youngest All-Jamaica male champion, and his sister was an outstanding player. So we involved ourselves in a lot of sport. I mean, some other prominent, you know, track and field and football, cricket, stand out. But all have to be supported in one way or other. And the only way we can do that is to find the means of getting more money in the system.
So, yeah, I feel like I've learned so much, and I hope you guys have learned a lot as well. So, for the next government, what do you think the game plan has to be for the next, let's say, the next term, the next 2 terms, like for us to get to a place where, thank God, MVP track club, but track and field is carrying us. But the Craig Butlers of the world with Phoenix trying to get players like Dejan Whisper Richards to the Premier League. But how do we make this sustainable?
I think that we're going to have to, there's a tendency in government to regard certain offices of state as the high and mighty offices of state. Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, Finance Minister, Security Minister. I think that we're going to have to make the sport minister a very important minister. Not just for sport people, but with an ability to work with the foreign ministry and the finance ministry to see how we can get support to put funds into sport. Yeah. And also to maintain what we have. Don't deteriorate. Mm-hmm. For example, the present infrastructure, like MVP, racers, and so on, you want to make sure that those don't just disappear, because those time was when if you wanted to be trained, Usain Bolt would have had to go to the US. Yeah. We proved that a Usain Bolt and a Ewan Blake and Asafa Powell could be developed here. Right. You want to make sure that you don't drop that, because that's an important infrastructure. So much so that we're attracting people from abroad. Exactly. To come here. And we want more of that, because that creates employment. The GC Foster College needs to be upgraded. Right. Once I went there, and I was very disappointed in how shabby it looked and how shabby the road leading to it looked. And I wanted to have found a way of putting some of the case money into just making it, because it is the premier training place for sport in the Caribbean, in English speaking Caribbean, and so on. So what I'm saying is that a future government must lift the profile of sport, not just as a sort of entertainment thing, but as a serious part of our, and see it as a culture. Culture tends to talk about music or art, that sort of a thing. To see sport as in cultural terms, not just in a game or so. All right, so we're down to our final 2 questions, right? Yeah. We're going to speak about your book, and then to end it off, seeing that we are, the Gunnaz YouTube channel, we'll talk a little bit about the Reggae Boyz and their Copa America performance. But yeah, talk to me about the book. Talk to me about the process. Talk to me about how you feel getting it out. Yeah. Well, I've always felt that I should, at some point in life, I've done 3 books on boxing. Okay. But that's confined to people who are interested in the area. But I thought that my life and my family's life has been an interesting one. Right. And that I should say a few things about it. How we grew up, what were the sort of influences as we developed, and then move on to schools in the West Indies and abroad, and my professional activities. Put them down. I mean, the thing was about twice the size, more. And in fact, the draft that your father and Mr. Patterson and Sir Kenneth all read was more than twice the size. but because of economics, I had to bring it down.
Yeah.
But still, I decided to make to use photograph. This is my father when he was in the Royal Air Force in England, two of his colleagues, and I have pictures like those. I showed you one earlier. This is me when I used to do a little track and field.
Wow.
And I am the third person there in the, we call ourselves, this is the 4x100 relay team. We call ourselves the 4Cs because all of us are initial C. And this is a letter by Mrs. Edna Manley to me.
Wow.
So, interesting little things, and this is your copy.
Well, thank you, sir. Much appreciated. So yeah, just to end it off, I don't think we need to, we've spoken about the Reggae Boyz pretty extensively. I just like to thank you for joining me on this journey to talk about things that the people need to know. I think you've done so many amazing things in your life. You continue to do such amazing things in your retirement, including writing a book. And yeah, if you guys like this video, don't forget to like it, share with somebody that needs to be educated as well. Leave a comment telling us who you want to see next. Maybe we can make it happen. And until next time, peace.